Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Titan and watched the stars shift as his ship came out of hyperspace. The journey had taken 3 weeks, but they had finally reached the edge of the Andromeda sector. His crew moved around, him with quiet efficiency, checking systems and running diagnostics after the long jump. "All systems green, Captain," reported his first officer, Commander Lisa Parker. She was a steady woman with sharp eyes who had served with Morrison for 5 years. "We're exactly where we planned to be." Morrison nodded and looked at the main screen. Space looked empty here, but he knew better. Somewhere in this sector was the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that had been sending messages across the galaxy for over a century. Those messages all said the same thing. They were gods, and everyone else should bow down to them. "Any sign of our hosts?" Morrison asked. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez worked at the communications station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls as she scanned all frequencies. "Nothing yet, sir." "But wait, ... oh, quotes." She paused and tilted her head. "I'm getting something now. It's strong, coming from multiple sources." "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice filled the air, speaking in perfect English but with an odd quality that made it sound artificial. The words seemed to echo and boom with fake authority. "Mortals of the species called human," the voice said, "you have entered the sacred domain of the eternal Zephyrian gods. Kneel before our divine presence and prepare to accept your place as our servants, or face complete annihilation." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. Commander Parker raised an eyebrow. The bridge crew exchanged glances but remained professional. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's science officer, pulled up preliminary scans on his station. "Well," Morrison said quietly, "that's quite a greeting." "Sir," called Ensign Danny Brooks from the tactical station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures. They're coming from orbital platforms around what looks like their homeworld. The readings are ... impressive." Morrison walked over to look at the tactical display. The energy signatures were indeed massive, far beyond anything in Earth's databases. Whatever weapons the Zephyrians had, they packed serious firepower. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. "Hard to tell, sir. At least 50, maybe more." "They're big, too." "Much larger than the Titan." Morrison studied the readings. The Zephyrians had clearly been preparing for this encounter. Their forces were positioned to show maximum intimidation, designed to make any visitor feel small and helpless. "Open a channel," Morrison said. "Let's respond to our divine friends." Rodriguez nodded and opened communications. Morrison stepped forward and spoke in his calm, steady voice. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Federation ship USS Titan. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic relations between our peoples. We do not recognize any claims of divinity or superiority over human space." The response came quickly, filled with cold amusement. "Your ignorance is forgiven, mortal Morrison. We are the Zephyrians, ascended beings who have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your primitive species will serve us willingly, or we will demonstrate why entire civilizations have bowed before our might." Morrison felt his temper rise, but kept his voice level. "We're not here to serve anyone. We're here to talk. If you want to discuss terms for coexistence, we're willing to listen. If you want to threaten us, you'll find humans don't respond well to bullying." There was a long pause before the Zephyrian voice returned, now with a hint of surprise. "Bullying? You dare to speak of us as bullies? We are gods, little mortal. We have destroyed worlds for less insult than you have just given us." "Then you're—" "Not very good gods," Morrison replied. "The gods I've heard about usually show mercy and wisdom. All I'm hearing from you is threats and boasting." Commander Parker stepped closer to Morrison. "Sir, we're detecting movement. Their ships are changing formation." On the main screen, massive shapes began to appear as the Zephyrian fleet decloaked. Morrison had seen big ships before, but these were enormous. Each one was at least 5 times the size of the Titan, with strange organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like living metal. "Holy ... whispered Brooks. "Stay calm," Morrison ordered. Size isn't everything, Dr. Walsh. What do you make of their ships? Walsh studied his readings carefully. The technology is definitely advanced, but there's something odd about it. The energy patterns don't match what I'd expect from purely functional designs. It's like they're spending enormous amounts of power just to look impressive. Interesting, Morrison said. What else? Their biological signatures are strange too, sir. I'm detecting life signs, but they're not natural, heavy artificial enhancement. Genetic modification, technological implants, the works? Morrison nodded. So they've changed themselves to match their image of godhood. It appears so, sir. The Zephyrian voice returned, now with an edge of anger. You continue to test our patience, mortal. Look around you, count our ships, feel the power of our weapons. You are one small vessel surrounded by the might of gods. Surrender now, and we may allow your species to serve us in comfort. Morrison looked at his crew. They were scared, he could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. These were good people, trained and ready to do their duty no matter what faced them. Amy, he said to Rodriguez, broadcast this on all frequencies. I want everyone to hear it. Rodriguez nodded and opened the channel. This is Captain Jake Morrison, speaking to the Zephyrian Empire. You claim to be gods, but gods don't need to threaten and intimidate. Gods don't need to surround one small ship with 50 warships to prove their point. You want to know what makes humans different? We've never needed to pretend to be gods to feel important. We know what we are, and we're proud of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the Zephyrian voice returned, colder than before. You have made your choice, mortal. We will demonstrate what happens to those who refuse to bow before gods. But we will not kill you quickly. You will be taken to our homeworld, where your submission will be displayed before 1 billion worshippers. That's assuming you can catch us, Morrison replied. He cut the communication and turned to his crew. All right, people. Looks like we're in for a fight. But remember, bullies are usually cowards underneath. Let's see how godlike they really are when someone fights back. Commander Parker moved to her station. Orders, sir? We're going to show them what humans are made of. But first, I want to know everything about these so-called gods. Dr. Walsh, keep analyzing their technology. Brooks, map their weapon systems and look for weaknesses. Rodriguez, monitor all communications. If they're talking to each other, I want to know what they're saying. And if they attack? Parker asked. Morrison smiled grimly. Then we teach them that humans don't bow to false gods. The USS Titan hung in space, one small ship surrounded by an overwhelming enemy force. But inside that ship, 50 humans prepared. To do what humans had always done when faced with impossible odds, they prepared to fight. Morrison looked at the enemy fleet on his screen. The Zephyrians had built their empire on fear and lies, claiming to be gods to avoid the hard work of earning respect. They had grown soft, used to easy victories against civilizations that believed their claims, but they had never faced humans before. Let's show them what real strength looks like, Morrison said. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. Admiral Cale Vorthek watched the human ship from his command thrown aboard the massive Zephyrian flagship. The vessel was called the Divine Wrath, and it was the largest ship in the fleet. Its hull gleamed with artificial light that made it look like a piece of the sun had been carved into the shape of a warship. The mortals refused to kneel, reported his second-in-command, High Priestess Syra Nethys. Her voice carried the same booming quality that all Zephyrians used when speaking to lesser beings. They show no fear of our divine presence. Vorthek studied the readings on his display. The human ship was tiny compared to his fleet, but it sat motionless in space with what looked like calm confidence. This was not how mortals were supposed to behave when faced with gods. How long has it been since we encountered resistance? He asked. 300 years, my lord, Nethys replied. The Korthik species tried to fight us, but they surrendered after we destroyed their moon, Vorthek nodded. The Zephyrians had spent thousands of years perfecting their method of conquest. They appeared as gods, demanded worship, and watched civilizations fall to their knees. It was simple and effective. Most species were so impressed by their massive ships and artificial divinity that they gave up without a fight, but these humans were different. What do our records tell us about them? Vorthak asked. They are a young species, my lord. Only recently achieved space travel. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They should be cowering in terror, begging for mercy. Yet they are. Not, Vorthak observed. Interesting. On the USS Titan, the crew worked frantically to understand what they were facing. Dr. Walsh had been running continuous scans of the Zephyrian fleet, and his findings were disturbing. Captain, he called from his science station, I'm detecting some unusual readings from their ships. Morrison walked over to examine the data. What kind of unusual? Their energy output is massive, but most of it isn't going to weapons or shields. It's being used for display purposes. Light shows, artificial gravity fields, dimensional effects that serve no tactical purpose. Commander Parker joined them. They're wasting power to look impressive? That's what it appears to be, Walsh confirmed. It's like they've prioritized looking godlike over actually being effective in combat. Morrison studied the readings more carefully. What about their life signs? You said they were artificially enhanced. Yes, sir, heavy modification. Genetic. Engineering, cybernetic implants, life extension technology? But Captain, there's something else. These modifications are killing them. Explain. Walsh pulled up biological data on his screen. Their natural lifespan should be about 200 years, but these enhancements are toxic. They're actually shortening their lives to maybe 60 or 70 years. They're literally dying to maintain their image of godhood. Morrison felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. So they're not actually gods. They're just people who've modified themselves to look like gods, and it's killing them. Exactly, and there's more, sir. I'm detecting natural Zephyrians. On their ships, unmodified ones, they appear to be servants or slaves. This was important information. Morrison opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Command, this is Morrison. We've encountered the Zephyrian Empire. They claim to be gods, but we've discovered they're artificially enhanced beings ruling over their own natural population. Requesting instructions. The response came back after a few minutes. Morrison, you are authorized to use your best judgment. Earth stands behind whatever decision you make. Do not let them intimidate you, Morrison smiled. Earth Command understood humans well. They knew that backing down to bullies only made things worse. Amy, he said to Rodriguez, are you monitoring their internal communications? Yes, sir. It's mostly routine ship operations, but I'm picking up something interesting. The natural Zephyrians are talking among themselves in their original language. The enhanced ones use a different dialect. What are they saying? Rodriguez listened for a moment, then looked up with surprise. The natural ones are asking questions about the humans. They want to know why we're not afraid. Some of them sound hopeful. This was exactly what Morrison had hoped to hear. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't united. There were cracks in their system, and humans might be able to exploit them. Sir, Brooks called from Tactical, the enemy fleet is moving. They're forming some kind of ceremonial pattern around us. Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were indeed arranging themselves in a complex formation that looked more like a religious ritual than a military maneuver. They were trying to intimidate through pageantry rather than tactical superiority. They're making themselves vulnerable, he realized. This formation prioritizes appearance over defense. Commander Parker nodded. If we had to fight our way out, we could probably break through at several points. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Morrison said. But it's good to know. The Zephyrian communication channel opened again. This time, Admiral Vorthak himself spoke. Mortals of the ship Titan, you have now witnessed the full glory of our divine fleet. Surely you can see that resistance is futile. Kneel before us, and we will be merciful. Morrison keyed the communications. Admiral Vorthak, I presume? This is Captain Morrison. I've got a question for you. You dare question a god? If you're really gods, why do you need such big ships? Why do you need so many weapons? In my experience, real power doesn't need to show off. There was a long pause before Vorthak replied. We demonstrate our power so that lesser beings can understand their place. Or maybe, Morrison said, you demonstrate your power because you're afraid that without all the special effects, people might realize you're just ordinary beings pretending to be something you're not. The silence that followed was longer this time. Morrison could imagine the chaos his words were causing on the Zephyrian flagship. Meanwhile, Dr. Walsh continued his analysis. Captain, I'm detecting increased activity in their enhancement systems. It looks like they're putting extra power into their artificial modifications. They're trying to become more godlike because we challenged them, Morrison observed. How much power are they diverting? Significant amounts, sir. They're actually weakening their ships to maintain their enhanced appearance. Morrison made a decision. Amy, I want you to broadcast a message on all frequencies. I want everyone in their fleet to hear this. Ready, sir? This is Captain Morrison speaking to all Zephyrians, enhanced and natural. Your leaders claim to be gods, but we've analyzed their technology. They're killing themselves with artificial modifications just to maintain an image. Real gods don't need to hurt themselves to prove their divinity. Real gods don't need to threaten and intimidate. If you're tired of living under false gods, maybe it's time to stand up for yourselves. The effect was immediate. The Zephyrian fleet's formation began to waver as individual ships started moving out of position. Morrison could see on his screens that their communications were exploding with activity. Sir, Rodriguez reported, I'm detecting multiple conversations between natural and enhanced Zephyrians. The enhanced ones are trying to maintain order, but the natural ones are asking questions. What kind of questions? They want to know if what you said is true. They're asking about the modifications, about the power consumption, about why they've never been allowed to learn about their own technology. Morrison felt a surge of satisfaction. The truth was a powerful weapon, and he had just fired the first shot. Admiral Vorthak's voice came over the communications, and for the first time it sounded uncertain. Mortals, you spread lies and confusion. We are gods. We have always been gods. Then prove it, Morrison replied. Show us something that only gods can do. Not special effects, not big ships, not modified bodies. Show us real divine power. The challenge hung in space between them. Morrison had just asked the false gods to prove they were real, knowing they couldn't. Now he had to wait and see how they would respond. The battle for truth had begun. 3 days passed with no movement from either side. The USS Titan sat in the middle of the Zephyrian fleet like a small island surrounded by massive storms. But Captain Morrison could see that the storms were getting weaker. Report, Morrison said as he entered the bridge for his morning shift. Commander Parker looked up from her station. The Zephyrian fleet is showing signs of internal conflict, sir. We've detected at least 12 ships that have moved out of formation without orders. Their communications are chaotic, Morrison nodded. This was what he had hoped for. What about their natural population? Lieutenant Rodriguez turned from her station. The natural Zephyrians are asking more questions every hour. They want to know why they've never been allowed to see the technical specifications of their own ships. They're starting to demand answers. And the enhanced ones? Getting desperate, sir. They're spending more and more power on their modifications. Dr. Walsh says some of them are pushing their bodies beyond safe limits. Morrison walked to the science station where Dr. Walsh was working. Doctor, how are our hosts doing? Walsh looked up with concern. Not well, Captain. I'm detecting multiple system failures across their fleet. They're burning out their own technology trying to maintain their godlike appearance. 3 ships have already suffered major power failures. Are they in danger? The enhanced Zephyrians are, yes. Their modifications are failing faster than expected. Some of them might not survive another day at this rate. Morrison felt a mix of satisfaction and pity. These beings had chosen to become false gods, but they were still people underneath all the artificial enhancements. What about the natural Zephyrians? They're fine physically, but they're scared. They're starting to realize that their gods might not be gods at all. Morrison made a decision. Amy, open a channel to Admiral Vorthak. Direct communication. Channel open, sir. Admiral, this is Captain Morrison. I'd like to speak with you? Privately. Ship to ship, no audience. There was a long pause before Vorthak's voice came through, and Morrison could hear the strain in it. What do you want, mortal? I want to offer you a choice. You can keep burning out your systems trying to prove you're a god, or you can accept medical assistance from our ship. Our doctor might be able to help stabilize your modifications. You offer help to gods? I offer help to people who are dying because they're afraid to be people. Another long pause. Why would you help us? Because that's what humans do. We help people who need help, even if they've been threatening us. Morrison could hear voices in the background of the transmission. The enhanced Zephyrians were arguing among themselves. I cannot show weakness before my people, Vorthak finally said. It's not weakness to accept help, it's wisdom. Real gods would be wise enough to accept assistance when they need it. The transmission ended abruptly. Morrison looked at his crew. Well, I tried. Sir, Brooks called from Tactical. I'm detecting movement from their flagship. It's approaching us. Morrison watched the massive ship move closer. It was easily 10 times the size of the Titan, but its movements were sluggish and uncertain. Systems were failing across its hull. Amy, incoming transmission. This is Admiral Vorthak. I request permission to come aboard your ship. Morrison smiled. Permission granted, Admiral. Dock at our main shuttle bay. An hour later, Admiral Vorthak stood in the USS Titan's medical bay. Dr. Walsh examined him with a mixture of scientific curiosity and medical concern. The Admiral was barely recognizable as the same species as the natural Zephyrians. His body was covered with technological implants, his skin had a metallic sheen, and his eyes glowed with artificial light. How long have you been enhanced like this? Walsh asked. 200 years, Vorthak replied. His voice was weaker now without the artificial amplification. I was young when I chose to become a god. And how old are you now? 57 years. Old, Walsh looked shocked. Admiral, your species normally lives to be 200. These modifications have cut your lifespan by more than half, Vorthak nodded slowly. I know, we all know. But we thought it was worth it to become gods. Were you dying before you became enhanced? Morrison asked. No, Vorthak said. Our world was dying. The sun was growing cold. We had the technology to find new worlds, to adapt, to survive, but some of us chose differently. We chose to become gods instead of finding solutions. Morrison sat down across from the Admiral. What happened to the ones who didn't choose enhancement? They became our servants. We told them that gods needed worshippers, that it was their purpose to serve us. They believed us because we looked so powerful. And now? Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. Now they're asking questions we can't answer. They want to know why gods need such big ships, why gods need so many weapons, why gods are dying while natural Zephyrians are healthy. Dr. Walsh finished his examination. Admiral, I can help stabilize your systems, but I can't reverse the damage. Your modifications are too integrated into your biology. You might live another 10 years if you're careful. And if I remove the modifications, you die within days. They're keeping you alive now, Vorthak closed his glowing eyes. We trapped ourselves in godhood. You chose to become something you weren't, Morrison said. But that doesn't mean you can't choose to become something better. What do you mean? Stop pretending to be gods, start being leaders. Help your people find real solutions to their problems. Vorthak looked at Morrison. With surprise? You would trust us to lead after what we've done? I'd trust you to try. That's all anyone can do. Back on the bridge, the situation was developing rapidly. Rodriguez monitored communications from across the Zephyrian fleet. Captain, she reported, the natural Zephyrians are organizing. They're demanding access to their own ship's technical systems. Some of the enhanced commanders are agreeing to their demands. Commander Parker studied the tactical display. Several ships have completely powered down their enhancement systems. They're running on basic power only. And the crews? Mixed reactions. Some enhanced Zephyrians are fighting to maintain their artificial status. Others are accepting that they can't keep up the pretense. Morrison looked at Admiral Vorthak, who was listening to the reports with growing sadness. Admiral, your people are choosing for themselves. What will you choose? Vorthak stood up slowly. I will return to my ship and tell my people the truth. All of it, our real history, our real nature, our real problems. And then? Then we will try to find real solutions instead of pretending to be gods, Morrison nodded. Dr. Walsh will provide you with medication to help stabilize your systems. It should give you time to help your people transition. Why are you helping us? Vorthak asked again. Because everyone deserves a chance to do better, Morrison replied. Even false gods. Admiral Vorthak returned to his ship and did something no enhanced Zephyrian had done in thousands of years. He told the truth. He broadcast to his entire fleet the real history of their species, the real cost of their enhancements, and the real reason they had become false gods. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Some enhanced Zephyrians refused to believe him. Others accepted the truth and began working with their natural crews to find solutions. A few ships experienced mutinies as different factions fought over what to do next, but slowly, across the fleet, a new consensus emerged. The natural Zephyrians would take control of their own ships and their own destiny. The enhanced ones would serve as advisors, using their remaining years to help undo the damage they had caused. Morrison watched from the bridge as the massive Zephyrian fleet began to transform itself. Ships that had been designed to intimidate were being converted to exploration and research vessels. Weapons that had been built to threaten were being dismantled or converted to mining equipment. Sir, Rodriguez reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian homeworld. The natural population there has learned about what happened here. They're demanding democratic elections. And the enhanced rulers? Most are agreeing to step down. A few are fighting, but they're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Morrison felt a deep satisfaction. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing, but it was collapsing into something better. The false gods were dying, but their people were finally free to become what they were meant to be. Captain, Commander Parker said, we're receiving a message from Earth Command. They want to know if we need reinforcements. Morrison smiled. Tell them we're fine. Tell them the gods have fallen, but the people are just getting started. The transformation of an empire had begun, and it had started with one simple truth. No one needs to be a god to be worth something. The revolution started on a ship called the Eternal Glory, Commander. Nexus Kane was one of the enhanced Zephyrians who refused to accept the truth. When Admiral Vorthak broadcasted his confession to the fleet, Kane shut down all communications to his ship and declared himself the true God Emperor. I will not let mortals destroy 10,000 years of divine rule, Kane announced to his crew. We are gods, and gods do not bow to insects. But his crew was split between enhanced and natural Zephyrians. The natural ones had heard Morrison's words and Vorthak's confession. They wanted answers. They wanted freedom. They wanted to know why they had spent their lives serving beings who were slowly killing themselves with artificial modifications. Chief Engineer Tala Wynn was a natural Zephyrian who had served on the Eternal Glory for 15 years. She had always wondered why the gods needed her to fix their machines if they were truly divine. Now she had her answer. Commander, she said to Kane, the crew wants to speak with you about what Admiral Vorthak said. Kane's enhanced eyes blazed with artificial fire. There's nothing to discuss. Vorthak has been corrupted by the mortals. I am your god now. But sir, the technical readings match what the human doctor said. Our enhancement systems are failing across the fleet. We're dying to maintain an image. Silence! Kane screamed. I will not hear these lies? But other natural Zephyrians on the bridge began to speak up. They had questions about the power consumption, about the failing systems. about why they were never allowed to understand their own technology, Kane realized he was losing control. In desperation, he activated the ship's emergency systems and locked down all stations. "You will obey, or I will destroy this ship and everyone on it." It was the wrong thing to say. The natural Zephyrians had spent their whole lives being told they were inferior, that they existed only to serve. But now they knew the truth. They outnumbered the enhanced crew 50-1, and they were done being afraid. Talawin led them in taking control of the ship's systems. They cut power to Kane's enhancement chamber and opened communications with the rest of the fleet. Within hours, the Eternal Glory had joined the growing revolution. Similar scenes played out across the Zephyrian fleet. Some ships transitioned peacefully as enhanced commanders accepted the truth. Others experienced brief but intense conflicts as desperate false gods tried to maintain their power through force. Captain Morrison watched it all from the bridge of the USS Titan. The massive Zephyrian fleet was tearing itself apart and rebuilding itself at the same time. Ships that had once moved in perfect formation now operated independently as their crews worked out new command structures. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, "we're getting communications from 17 different Zephyrian ships. They're all asking for the same thing, which is, they want copies of our technical analysis. They want to understand exactly what their enhancements have done to them." Morrison looked at Dr. Walsh. "Doctor, I've prepared a complete medical and technical report," Walsh said. "It explains the enhancement process, the biological costs, and potential treatments. I think they deserve to know the truth about their own bodies." "Send it to all ships that request it," Morrison ordered, within hours. The technical report had spread throughout the Zephyrian fleet and beyond. Natural Zephyrians finally understood why their enhanced leaders looked so different, why they consumed so much power, and why they seemed to age so quickly despite their advanced medical technology. But the most shocking revelation was in Dr. Walsh's historical analysis. The enhancement technology had been stolen from another species that the early Zephyrians had conquered. The false gods hadn't even invented their own divinity. Admiral Vorthek appeared on Morrison's screen, looking weaker than before, but somehow more peaceful. "Captain Morrison, I must thank you again." "For what, Admiral?" "For showing us that real strength comes from truth, not from pretending to be something we're not. My fleet is changing, but it's changing for the better." Morrison nodded. "How are your people handling the transition?" "Better than I expected. The natural Zephyrians are taking command of their own ships. They're electing their own leaders. Some of them are even offering to help us enhanced ones find ways to live with our modifications. And the ones who resist?" Vorthek's expression grew sad. "There are still a few who refuse to accept reality. Commander Kane has locked himself in his enhancement chamber and won't come out. Captain Silex has declared her ship independent and claims she will rebuild the Empire. But they're few, and they're isolated." Morrison understood. Change is never easy, especially when it means giving up power. "Captain, there's something else. We've been receiving messages from our homeworld and from colony worlds throughout our empire. The natural populations everywhere are demanding their freedom. The enhanced rulers who refuse to step down are being overthrown." This was bigger than Morrison had expected. "Are you saying the entire Zephyrian Empire is collapsing?" "Yes, but it's collapsing into something better. Democratic governments, elected leaders, scientific advancement instead of artificial divinity. For the first time in 10,000 years, my people are free to be themselves." Morrison felt a mix of pride and concern. "Admiral, what about other species in your empire, the ones you conquered?" "They're declaring their independence too. We no longer have the power or the will to stop them. The galaxy is about to become a very different place." Suddenly, alarms began sounding on the USS Titan. Ensign Brooks called out from the tactical station. "Captain, I'm detecting weapons. Fire in the fleet. One of the Zephyrian ships is attacking the others." Morrison looked at the tactical display. A massive ship identified as the Divine Supremacy was firing on 3 other vessels. Its enhanced commander had apparently decided that if he couldn't rule as a god, He would destroy anyone who denied his divinity. Amy, get me a channel to that ship, Morrison ordered. This is Captain Morrison calling the Divine Supremacy. Cease fire immediately. The response came back filled with artificial rage. I am Captain Silex, last true god of the Zephyrian Empire. I will not let my people be corrupted by mortal lies. Captain Silex, you're firing on your own people. They are no longer my people. They have chosen to become servants of mortals instead of serving gods. Morrison made a quick decision. All hands, battle stations, Mr. Brooks, target the Divine Supremacy's weapon systems. Sir, are we really going to fight a Zephyrian ship? We're going to protect the Zephyrian ships that can't protect themselves. The USS Titan moved quickly toward the Divine Supremacy. The massive alien ship turned its weapons toward the human vessel, finally giving the false gods the battle they had been threatening, but it was not the battle they expected. The Divine Supremacy was huge and powerful, but it was also clumsy and slow. Its systems were failing from the strain of maintaining its enhanced crew. Its weapons were designed for intimidation rather than accurate fire. The USS Titan was smaller and faster. More importantly, its crew worked together as a team instead of trying to maintain artificial hierarchies. Brooks coordinated with Engineer Collins to maximize shield efficiency. Rodriguez monitored enemy communications while Dr. Walsh analyzed their weaknesses. Their main cannon is overheating, Walsh reported. They're pushing their systems beyond safe limits. Just like their crew, Morrison observed. Mr. Brooks, target their power couplings. Disable their weapons, but don't destroy the ship. The battle was brief but decisive. The USS Titan's precise fire disabled the Divine Supremacy's weapons and left it drifting powerless in space. Captain Silex's demands for godlike power had led to the same result as all the other false gods: failure and isolation. Admiral Vorthak's voice came over the communications. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Free Zephyrian Fleet, thank you for protecting our people. Morrison looked at the disabled ship on his screen. Admiral, what will happen to Captain Silex and her crew? The natural Zephyrians on her ship have already taken control? Silex will be given medical care and a chance to accept reality. If she chooses to keep fighting, she do it alone, Morrison nodded. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The Zephyrian Empire had fallen, but millions of people across the galaxy were now free to build something better. Admiral, Morrison said, what are your plans now? We return to our worlds and begin the hard work of rebuilding. We'll establish democratic governments, help other species rebuild their own civilizations, and try to undo 10,000 years of damage. And the enhanced Zephyrians? We'll serve as advisors and teachers for as long as we can. We'll use our remaining years to help instead of rule, Morrison smiled. That sounds like the best anyone can do. The false gods had fallen, and the real people were finally free to rise? 6 months later, Captain Morrison stood in the conference room of the USS Titan and looked at the holographic display showing the former Zephyrian Empire. The map was covered with new symbols representing democratic governments, independent worlds, and cooperative alliances. Where once a single empire had ruled through fear, now dozens of free civilizations worked together. The transformation is remarkable, said Dr. Walsh, reviewing the latest reports. Over 300 worlds have established their own governments. Most are democracies, but some have chosen other systems that work better for their species. Commander Parker pointed to several sectors on the map. The former slave worlds are doing especially well. The Korthic people have rebuilt their civilization and are already exploring new star systems. The Valdris have established a peaceful federation of their worlds. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. What about the Zephyrians themselves? Mixed results, Walsh replied. The natural Zephyrians are adapting well to freedom. They've elected leaders, established universities, and started new exploration programs. But the enhanced ones... Still dying, Morrison finished. Yes, sir. Despite our medical assistants, most enhanced Zephyrians have less than 5 years left. They're using that time to help rebuild, but it's a race against their failing bodies. Morrison had watched this tragedy unfold over the past months. The false gods were paying the ultimate price for their artificial divinity, but most of them had chosen to spend their remaining time doing good instead of clinging to power. Lieutenant Rodriguez entered the conference room carrying a datapad. Captain, we've received a message from Admiral Vorthak. He wants to meet with you before we return to Earth. Where is he now? On the former homeworld. He's been working with the new government there to establish a memorial for the enhanced Zephyrians who have died during the transition. Morrison made his decision, set course for the Zephyrian homeworld. It's time for a final visit. The USS Titan arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld 3 days later. The planet looked different than it had in the old Empire records. The massive monuments to false gods had been removed. In their place, the natural Zephyrians had built schools, hospitals, and research centers. Admiral Vorthak met Morrison at the spaceport. The once imposing figure was now clearly dying. His enhanced systems were failing rapidly, and his artificial modifications were shutting down one by one. But his natural eyes showed something Morrison had never seen before. Peace. Captain Morrison, Vorthak said in his weakened voice. Thank you for coming. How are you feeling, Admiral? Like someone who is finally ready to stop pretending. Vorthak replied, Come, I want to show you something. They traveled to the capital city, where the natural Zephyrians had built something unprecedented in their history. A democracy center where elected representatives made decisions for all people equally. But that wasn't what Vorthak wanted to show Morrison. Behind the government buildings was a simple park with a memorial wall. Carved into the wall were the names of every enhanced Zephyrian who had died during the transition. But more importantly, the wall also listed what each person had done to help during their final years. We decided, Vorthak explained, that we didn't want to be remembered as false gods. We wanted to be remembered as people who tried to make things right. Morrison read some of the entries. Commander Nexus had helped design new defensive systems for former slave worlds. High Priestess Nephis had established medical centers on 12 different planets. Captain Dilox had led the effort to safely shut down the Empire's intimidation weapons. You've all done good work, Morrison said. We had good teachers, Vorthak replied. Your crew showed us that real strength comes from helping others, not from demanding worship. They walked through the memorial garden in comfortable silence. Natural Zephyrian children played nearby, laughing and learning in ways their parents never could under the old Empire. These children would grow up free, never knowing what it meant to live under false gods. Admiral, Morrison said finally, I have something to tell you. Earth has decided to establish a permanent diplomatic mission in this sector. We want to help support the new governments and ensure the transition continues smoothly. Vorthak smiled, a genuine expression that looked strange on his artificially modified face. That would be welcome. But Captain, we have something to ask. Of you as well. What's that? We want to send a ship to Earth, a joint mission with natural Zephyrians and representatives from the other free worlds. We want to learn how humans built their civilization without needing to pretend to be gods. Morrison felt honored by the request. I'm sure Earth would welcome such a mission. They continued walking until they reached the center of the memorial garden. There, a simple stone bench sat under a tree that had been planted by the first democratically elected Zephyrian leader. Vorthak sat down heavily, his failing system struggling to support him. Captain, I need to ask you something that's been bothering me. Go ahead. Why did you help us? We threatened you, demanded your submission, claimed we would destroy your species. Most people would have fought back with anger. But you fought back with truth. Why? Morrison sat down beside the dying admiral. Because that's what humans do when we're at our best. We see people who are trapped by their own lies and we try to help them find the truth. Even when those people are threatening you? Especially. Then fear makes people do terrible things. But truth can set them free, Vorthak nodded slowly. I spent 200 years trying to be a god. But in these past 6 months, helping my people rebuild, I've felt more alive than I ever did when I was pretending to be divine. That's because you were finally being yourself. Yes, Vorthik agreed. And now I can die as myself instead of as a lie. They sat in silence for a while, watching the Zephyrian children play. These children represented the future, free, honest, and unafraid to be exactly what they were. Captain, Vorthik said eventually, I have one last favor to ask. Name. When you return to Earth, tell your people what happened here. Tell them that the galaxy is changing because humans refuse to bow to false gods. Tell them that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting, but from showing others a better way to live. Morrison promised he would. Admiral Vorthak died 3 weeks later, surrounded by the natural Zephyrians he had helped free. His last words were reported to be, "Thank the humans for teaching us how to be people again." The USS Titan departed for Earth the following month. Captain Morrison carried with him reports of the greatest transformation in galactic history, the fall of a 10,000-year empire and the birth of dozens of free civilizations, but more importantly, he carried the knowledge that humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or rulers, but as teachers and friends. Earth's strength lay not in superior weapons or technology, but in the simple human refusal to accept lies as truth. The journey home took 4 weeks. During that time, Morrison wrote his report for Earth Command and the United Nations. He described the Zephyrian Empire, its false gods, and the revolution that freed an entire galaxy. But he also wrote about the lesson humans had learned. We discovered, he wrote, that the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to destroy or intimidate. It's the courage to tell the truth and help others find their own strength. As the USS Titan approached Earth, Morrison looked at his crew. They had done something remarkable. Without firing a shot in anger, without conquering a single world, they had changed the fate of billions of people across the galaxy. Lieutenant Rodriguez broke the comfortable silence on the bridge. Captain, Earth Command is requesting permission to interview the crew about our mission. Tell them we'll be happy to share everything we learned, Morrison replied. And sir? There's another message. The President wants to meet with you personally. Morrison smiled. Tell the President I'll be honored to meet with him. I have quite a story to tell. The USS Titan entered Earth's solar system, carrying with it the news that would change humanity's future. The galaxy was no longer ruled by false gods. It was governed by free people who had learned that real strength comes from truth, cooperation, and the courage to be exactly what you are. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as gods, but as something far better, teachers of freedom and friends to all who sought the truth.